everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a video to help those who are kind of beginners in reading in Japanese books, and I want to introduce you some books that might be interesting to you and that are easy to read in the genres that you're actually more likely to read. I think a lot of videos that recommend books for beginners often they're actually not that beginner friendly, and also I think a lot of them are stuck on like literary genre or just mystery, or they're just like stuck in like the genre that the creator likes. And I understand that, but if you're, for example, a mystery reader and someone's recommending fantasy reads, well, that's not really going to help you out. And then also, someone who is used to reading a lot of fantasy, those books are going to be easy to read for that person because they're used to reading that genre. But for you, if you've never read fantasy, even in your own native languages, it might not be so obvious when some character is doing a bunch of spells or carrying a certain kind of sword, or they're traveling around with mages and things like that. Like, that's not obvious. So today I wanted to introduce you 4 books. They are each in their own genre, and they're very, very easy to read. They're easy to read in terms of grammar. They're easy to read in terms of the vocabulary that's being selected. They're very easy to read in terms of the topic being discussed. And they're very easy to read in terms of readability or page turnability. Like, they're all books where you want to turn the page to see what's going to happen next. So I have horror, I have coming of age, I have suspense thriller, and then I have more literary fiction. So let's start with horror. And the first book I want to introduce you to is Natsu to Hanabi to Watashi no Shitai by Otsuichi. Otsuichi is actually an author that I can recommend any of his books, and they will be easily readable. In fact, Otsuichi is such a easily read author that I myself actually use him as a standard. Basically, what I do is maybe every year or every other year, every few years, I will pick up one of his books, and I can sort of gauge how my reading ability has progressed over the years by how much easier and easier it becomes to read his books. So at the very beginning, when I was a true beginner, his short stories, properly took time to read. They were still easy, but because you have to build up endurance, you have to build up stamina, you have to practice how to read, basically, when you're learning how to read in your new language, that it's going to be slow no matter how easy it is. But the thing is that now I can speed through his books so quickly. I read 100 pages in just a few hours in one day. Like, that's half of the book on the most recent book I've just read. So I actually use him as a standard to sort of see how my reading has progressed, because he's just very easy. Now, he does mainly do short stories, so he has a bunch of short story collections that I would also highly recommend. But today I just kind of wanted to recommend a novel, because at one point you have to not get out of manga entirely, like stop reading that genre, but you have to progress from the type of endurance it takes to read a manga, the type of endurance it takes to read a short story, and then you need to get into practicing the type of endurance it takes to read a full-length novel. So that's why I chose this one. This is a book basically about a brother and sister that kill a friend of theirs way back in elementary school when they were only 9 years old. And the whole book revolves around them trying to hide the body and trying to get away with their crime, while in the background the village is getting ready for their festival, so with all the fireworks and everything. So the village is really bustling with emotion because of this festival, but also in the background there is actually a killer in like villages nearby that have been actually targeting children. So it creates this huge mess of will these kids be caught, or will the village think it's the perpetrators, and what's going to happen. And Otsuichi is so good for reading because he knows how to create tension with his works. He is so good at building tension, but the thing is, like, he builds tension with very easily followable sentences, and he's actually almost repetitive to a fault. So even if you as a beginner, if you weren't able to understand a sentence, he's probably going to repeat the same idea in another way very shortly after. So then you can sort of be like, oh, I think I get it now. And you can even go back a few sentences and reread what you just read. And with the new context, it'll help you process what you might not have understood. But he is very easy. All his vocabulary is basically, I would say, actually in the N3 level. There basically are no N1 words. It's very rare that there's like an N1 level word. If there is, there will be furigana in all of his books, and you can easily look them up. But for the most part, if you're an N3 level, you can read you can start reading his books. You do not need to be N2. You definitely don't need to be N1. N3 beginner level, you are perfectly good to read his books. But he just has a writing style. It's not convoluted. It's very easy. When he describes something, it's basically how anybody could describe, like in the room, there was a chair, there was a bookshelf, there was a bed. There's nothing like the drape of the maroon grayish curtains with the print of the Amazonian rainforest during the season of the equinox of this. Like, there's none of that. If there are drapes, they're called curtains, and they're color red, you know. So he describes scenes just to put you into the scene, to tell you what the location is, but he doesn't go overboard with overly descriptive words. All of his action words are very simple. It's very much he said, she said, they did. It's a lot of just simple past tense, a lot of future tense, a lot of present tense. There isn't too much passive voice. So it really makes it easy to follow, really easy to read, and the plot and the tension that he is able to create will really, really push you forward. So when it comes to, if you're interested in the horror genre, Otsuichi is your the best way to enter the Japanese horror genre, because he is so easy to read. So that's my first recommendation. Let's continue with tension, and let me give you a very, very easy book in the thriller genre, and that is Influence by Kondo Fumie. This book is a thriller, and it actually has like a very hard-hitting plot in terms of like the topic. Basically, these young girls, again, when they were in elementary school, their friend was being sexually abused in their home, and the friends find out about that, and they decide to help that friend out. They decide to help her out. They do that, and then later on in the future, basically one of the main characters meets her friend again as an adult, when that as an adult, and that friend basically confesses to, I keep saying friend, but I don't remember their names. The friend that had previously been sexually assaulted when she was young tells the friend that had saved her previously and had told her, I'm being domestically abused by my husband. So it all comes back together again, where this character is in trouble and our main character has to decide whether or not she's going to save her. And so the past and the present come together, and it creates this really like fairly page-turning situation where you feel so bad for the characters, but you're also wondering what's going to happen. How are they going to save her? And is it up to them to save her again? And it was actually really, really interesting. But I have to say, this book was ridiculously easy to read. It was one of the easiest books I've ever read in Japanese, actually, which makes it perfect for this video, because this is such a readable book. And it's readable, again, vocabulary, grammar. It's very basic. It's a lot of just, again, no fussing with the different tenses, passive voice, anything like that. The sentences are very short. It's not like the sentences are usually no longer than two vertical lines down. There's a lot of dialogue. You can see in the book, it's just like there's a lot of white space When I mean white space, it just means like here, down here, which just shows you that there's a lot of dialogue. It's not like heavy paragraphs. If you were to like compare it to this book, which has basically walls and walls of black text, you can see that this book, just by sight, is much easier to read than this. So it's a lot of dialogue. And the thing is, like, the action, the reason that this is so easy and good for beginners is that it's very again, repetitive, but not in a bad way this time. But it's repetitive in the sense that, like, the characters will discuss and be like, I think we should do this. And then what happens? They do it. So you're basically, you have the opportunity to confirm what you've just read within the same book, which is what's going to help you process the information of a book. So if I tell you, I'm going to go to the park, and you're like, wait, where is she going? But then in the very next paragraph, I am going to the park. We went to the park. In the park, we did this. In the park, we had a picnic. In the park, we talked to these people. In the park, we ran into this person. You're going to get a feeling, oh, they went to a park. So you see what I mean? Like, the book is basically explains itself by having the characters do exactly what they're going to say. It's not like, I think we should go to the park. Oh, wait, no, never mind. Now we're at the coffee shop, you know? Or, oh, wait, never mind. Now we're on a train to go somewhere else. So the book is self-confirming and makes it really easy for you to have many opportunities to confirm your understanding of what's going on. So combine all of that with a thrilling plot, which gives you great page turnability, gives you great tension. It makes you want to find out what's going to happen next. It gives you the opportunity to feel connections to the characters because of the horrible situation that they're in, along with a very easily understandable dialogue, very much everyday type of vocabulary, because again, let's go to the park. We went to the park. We were friends in elementary school. This is what we did in school. Like, those are all words that if you read daily life manga, if you watch daily life dramas like that, those are all words you have encountered over and over again. There are even a lot of words that you would typically easily study if you're studying Japanese at school, at university, in your class, etc. So these are all words you've seen before. You might not be super solid on them yet, but you have pretty much seen these words. So you just have to build confidence as you repetitively see the same words. And these authors, like Otsuichi, actually, she does use the same words over and over again. You'll see, like, authors have tics. They have words, certain phrases they like to use within one book, but also throughout their works. So as you pick up an author's style, you're gonna see those. You're gonna start picking up on those patterns, and it makes it really easy compared to authors who have such an amazing vocabulary that every time they present a word, they present the synonym of the word, and you're like, I can't remember every version of this word. Here, it's a lot of repetition of the same vocabulary, the same grammar patterns, which makes it very easy to read. So combined again with that great page-turning plot, if you're into the thriller genre, this is a good book to leap into that genre when it comes to Japanese reading. So once again, the book is called Influence by Kondo Fumie. So very good book. The next book I wanted to introduce is the coming-of-age novel. Coming-of-age novels are very popular in Japan. They make a lot of movies are made and they're adapted from these books. So it's a very popular genre. And I could, most people would recommend, again, they'd recommend Colorful, or they recommend The Beast Inside of Me, or whatever that horrible book was called. But those are actually not as easy as this one. This one is Natsu no Niwa, The Friends, and by, I don't know how to read, what's their last name? Oh, no, I do know how to read it. I just got lazy. Yumoto Kazumi. Yumoto Kazumi. So Natsu no Niwa, so which is basically the garden summer, like the summer garden, but actually the English subtitle is The Friends, if you can see that. And this book has been actually translated to English. It's considered children's fiction in the English marketing, but it's not a children's book. Like, it's easily an adult book. In Japan, it's marketed as an adult book. But it's just when in English it got marketed to children for some reason. But this does have an English translation. So for that, if you're unsure of what you're reading, you can even compare and contrast with the English translation to help your understanding. So that gives you another option. Now, I chose this book. This book is slightly more difficult than the two books that I have already introduced, but in the genre of coming of age books, this is definitely one of the easier ones. And it's easy because it's when you're talking about a coming of age book, you're definitely immediately put in the type of vocabulary for everyday situations. These are young boys who basically, the plot is three young boys who kind of get fascinated with the idea of death and with the idea of seeing death. Basically, one of them had gone to a funeral of a relative and he saw the dead body, but he hadn't really processed the idea of like actual dying. And these young boys, they're like, well, I want to see that. Like, that's what I want to see. And so there's an old man who's very much solitary, bachelor, alone, lives, like, doesn't interact with anybody that they know of. And they decide, well, he looks like he's on his deathbed. Let's observe him so that we have the opportunity to see someone dying. And of course, it's a coming of age story. So slowly by slowly, they create this relationship with this old man and they create this friendship with this old man. And they discover, something more important than death. They discover friendship and the joy of living and the joy of enjoying things, the joy of having relationships with people your own age, but also people of an elderly age, etc., etc. And it was actually a really, really beautiful book. And so yeah, it's this one as well. The sentences are just a smidge more sophisticated than the other two books that I've introduced. A smidge more sophisticated, but that doesn't mean they're hard to read. It just means they create more of an atmosphere. This person, it definitely has a little bit more of a descriptive nature. Not so much descriptive of the scene around you, but descripting of the atmosphere, description of the feeling that you get when these characters interact. The vocabulary is vocabulary that you need to know if you plan on getting better at reading. It's very much everyday vocabulary. Kids going to the house and kind of spying on him and hiding behind a fence and playing in the garden and things like that, interacting with people around them and discussing things that boys would discuss. And it happens in the summer, so you get very summer specific vocabulary like fireworks and the cicadas ringing in the bushes and the trees and things like that. So you have all of this beautiful language that really helps you smooth out your reading ability, but makes it really easy, and it makes a smooth transition so you can read. And it just leads to actually a really quaint and really quite beautiful story about three boys who are coming of age. So that's my recommendation for that particular genre. And let's move on to more the literary genre. Now, this book was a book that had been nominated for the Akutagawa Prize, Akutagawa Sho. It did not win, but it was nominated. And that book is called Omokage. How does he pronounce his last name? It's like a pen name, but Ozaki Sekaikan. Like, I know the Sekaikan, but Ozaki, yeah. Ozaki Sekaikan. The author is actually either a guitarist or the main vocalist, one of the two of a rock band. And he's been writing books as well. And this is his debut book, actually, and it was immediately nominated for the Akutagawa Prize. And this book is basically, and I should mention, if you're not familiar with the prize, it's a major Japanese literary award where that focuses on more books that reflect on like social issues, human interaction, stuff like that. It's a literary fiction award. If you want genre fiction award, you would have to go for the Naoki Prize, which comes out at the exact time as the Akutagawa Sho. But this book basically is about a young child, young girl who often goes and to work with her mother, but her mother works in a massage parlor that gives happy endings. Basically, they give hand jobs. Now, to protect her daughter, of course, the daughter is, even though she's in the same room, she's behind a curtain, so she can't see anything, and she just does her homework. But the daughter can hear things, and she doesn't understand what she's hearing, but she is hearing things that aren't appropriate. And this whole book basically goes and explores this mother-daughter relationship, and really is a book that shows how close the line that separates between childhood and adulthood, and child innocence and like adult topics, how the line between those two is very thin, and can be very thin depending on the environment you're raised in, and how a child can be influenced in a certain direction if you're not careful. So it's very much, this whole book really just sits on that line. Now, the whole thing that makes this quite easy to read is that the book is from the perspective of the young girl. And so the young girl is in elementary school, so she doesn't understand the adult world. So she describes everything like a child would describe things, which means that the vocabulary is a lot lower, the sentences are a lot simpler, the grammar is a lot simpler, and the viewpoint is simpler. You're not going to have these, incredibly philosophical moments talking about, or like ethical moments considering like the morals of the prostitution industry in Japan and things like that. You're not going to have that, because the child is not having those thoughts. That child is just living, seeing her mother, trying to understand her own feelings, trying to understand the feelings of her mother, trying to understand the struggles that her mother is going through, but she can't really do it because she doesn't understand the adult world, and she doesn't understand the struggles, the type of struggles that is connected to the adult world, because she's just a child. And the author is very interesting in his play of words, because the child, since she's just a very young elementary student, she hasn't learned that much kanji yet. So when she is talking to herself, or when she hears, so when she's talking to herself or talking to her mom, she speaks in very little kanji, because technically she doesn't know those. So for example, the word shinpai is, if you know, is the kanji for kokoro, heart, with the kanji of kubaru, to send. And so, but kubaru is too high level for a girl in school. So the author, when he writes shinpai, like I'm worried for my mother, like shinpai shiteru, okaasan no koto shinpai shiteru, he writes the word kanji, the word shinpai with only the kokoro kanji, and then the pai he writes in hiragana. So for you as a learner, if your kanji skills are a little bit weaker, that's going to help you out, because you're basically going to be at the same level as the protagonist herself. And what's interesting is, because of the play with the Japanese language, when the adults do speak, the very few times that adults are speaking around our protagonist, and when she's not understanding the conversation, their conversations, all of the kanji are including. So it shows you that she's not understanding what's going on. So because of that, even though this book is, there's a lot more black text, as I kind of showed you, it's actually very simply reading. It's also a very short book. This book, if I believe, is only 97 pages. No, it's 124 pages. I lied. It's 124 pages, but it is very easy to read, simple, and it gives you a very good introduction to the Japanese literary world. It gives you a great introduction to the Akutawa Prize in Japan, this literary prize in Japan, and it does it in a really beautiful story that will really make you think and really make you feel for the characters that are included in this little book. So there you go. This is the very last book I wanted to introduce to you. I really hope that helps in your beginner's Japanese reading journey, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.